Hello and welcome to this Monday edition of the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast, a show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. You can follow me at Chris Belcher24 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The show is at PBW Podcast on those platforms as well. So make sure you give us a follow. Make sure that you're keeping up with all the happenings of the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. Make sure you're following us on social media. Make sure you're supporting our partners, BodySlam.net, SportsWire Radio. I know that they would greatly appreciate it. That's where you can catch our video episodes, BodySlam.net YouTube channel, SportsWire Radio, your 24/7 stop for everything sports radio. They play us quite a bit. They play a lot of other great shows. Make sure you support both of those partners. I know they would appreciate it. And if you are listening on a traditional audio format, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever the case may be, drop us a 5-star review. We would appreciate that very, very much. Once again, my name is Chris Belcher. Thank you for hanging out with us. If this is your first time listening to us or you've been with us from the beginning, we can't do this show without your support. The show is for the fans, by the fans. We're just a couple of wrestling fans talking about our favorite form of entertainment, well, for the most part. So thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for your support. We appreciate it. I am joined, as always, by my partner in crime, the young buck, Mr. Andy York. Andy, as we sit here and hit the record button on a Sunday night, I don't know about you, but it's been a long weekend.
It's always a long weekend, I feel like. It's work has been busy this weekend. I'm going on a trip next week, so preparing everything all together is a chore.
Yes.
I feel like there was a lot of wrestling 2 weeks ago with WrestleMania and like all the other shows. This past week there's a lot of wrestling that took place that happened over like a span of 6 days as well.
Yes.
I haven't got to watch everything yet, but wrestling is just moving on, and with work and life and wrestling and everything else, it's a busy time right now.
It is a busy time right now. And for all of that wrestling, we're going to catch you up this Thursday on our regularly scheduled show where we cover the current product. Roman Reigns apparently cut a babyface promo at a house show this weekend. I'm sure that'll get talked about. Cody Rhodes is continuing to make news. We'll always be talking about Cody Rhodes, at least for right now, we will. AEW stirred up a little bit of controversy on Friday night. Don't know if we'll get into that or not, but we'll definitely touch on that match for sure. Lot to get to, though, with wrestling. So, again, if the current product is your thing, make sure you check us out on Thursday. Again, wherever you find your podcast, SportsWire Radio, and the BodySlam.net YouTube channel. Just to give you guys a little heads up about what is coming up next week. Andy just mentioned he's going on a little vacation. He might take 1 or 2 episodes off, but the train will continue to roll. I will have some special guests with me. We will continue to crank out episodes. We'll probably pre-record a couple of things before Andy leaves as well. One of those things being a week from today, you will get the return on this podcast of Hunter Knott, Rosario Grillo, better known as TSF, the hottest tag team on the indie scene. They are coming back for another round of interviews. Can't wait to have those guys on. I love them very much. They are incredible talents and stand-up guys, Andy. I mean, those guys are so much fun to hang around. And I texted them the other day. I was like, hey, what do you think about hopping back on the podcast? And they were, Andy, they were all excited. So we are happy to have them back on. It's going to be awesome.
If it's anything like the first interview, it's going to be a great time. I'm sure the pictures with us and a certain Johnny will be brought up as well, which I'm looking forward to that conversation as well. And just to kind of get their insight on a lot of things that have been happening. I mean, obviously we're fans on the outside looking in, but as two guys that are involved in the business, kind of get their perspective on a lot of things, I think will be really cool.
Absolutely. It definitely will. So if what Andy is alluding to, I'll just go ahead and say it. These guys train at the Nightmare Factory. They are trained by QT Marshall and by Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is the hottest thing in wrestling right now. So if you want a little, I'm not necessarily saying they have information that everybody else doesn't have, but if you want a personal look at what's going on right now, make sure you tune in next Monday for Hunter Knott and Rosario Grillo, TSF. They will be on the podcast a week from today as you listen to this, if it's on Monday. So next Monday, that'll be the 25th of April. Make sure that you tune into the show. All right. But before we get there, today's topic, Andy mentioned WrestleMania earlier. One of the coolest things that we got to see at WrestleMania was Triple H walk into the ring, putting his boots in the ring, officially signifying he is retiring from the world of in-ring competition in professional wrestling. 26, 7 years or so in the business, I believe is where we landed with the game. So today's topic, we told you before WrestleMania, we were going to devote a whole episode to Triple H's career, and that's what we're going to do. Now, we're not necessarily going to go through every match and moment and, you know, uncover everything about his career. Well, we're going to, this show is for the fans, by the fans. So we're going to talk about from a fan perspective what we remember most about Triple H. And Andy, I don't know about you, but right now, the biggest thing sticking in my mind is just his surprise entrance at WrestleMania. Nobody expected it. And then him with the tradition of putting the boots in the ring, signifying his retirement, especially for you at your first WrestleMania, getting that, like, man, it doesn't get much better than that. Getting to see Triple H do that.
Yeah, it does. It's definitely it was definitely a bittersweet moment
Sure
of
was.
like, like it was really cool to get to see his entrance, especially at WrestleMania. I'm a little disappointed that he didn't come out on like a motorcycle or some gothic army
Yes.
carrying him out or whatever. But to see that at WrestleMania was really cool. But to know that we won't ever get to see him in the ring again, that part really, takes a hit. I've never got to see Triple H wrestle in person that I can remember, which you know sucks because Triple H is one of my favorites of all time, and so never getting to see him in the ring kind of really takes a damper on some things. But I mean, just the moment itself, the music hitting, him coming out, all of it was just amazing. The reception he got, the look on his face that you could just tell this moment has been coming for a while. I think he's been not necessarily dreading it, but it's been weighing a toll on him, and you could kind of just see a lot of that pressure taken off of him. So it was definitely a bittersweet moment, but it was great getting to be there live, getting to see that, and all we can really say is thank you, Hunter, for everything that you've done in the business, for the amazing stuff you did, for the times that we wanted to ram your head through a wall, which I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. Like, thank you for everything, because he kept wrestling interesting.
He really did, man. And not only did we get to see that at WrestleMania, you mentioned, thank you, Hunter. Obviously, that was the resounding voice of the fans in between SmackDown and the Hall of Fame on the Friday before WrestleMania, because that was his first public appearance since he made his announcement that he had to retire. So, man, that was the Undertaker moment at the Hall of Fame was clearly the best moment of the night, for sure, hands down. But number two was when Triple H walked out on stage, and just the eruption from the people and the gratitude from the people and the emotion on Hunter's face. Like, it was incredible, man.
And it was one of those things, as soon as he came out of the curtain and around the corner, like, what was really interesting about the Hall of Fame is you couldn't really tell necessarily who some people were, but the people up front that were closer would, like, you could tell that they were the buzz would kind of start of who was out there. As soon as he walked, though, everybody saw who it was, knew who it was, and it was instantaneous that it happened. And he looked, you could see the look on his face. He was trying not to cry, trying not to get emotional, but it was awesome getting to have that moment. It's kind of like obviously there was like 50-something thousand people or whatever in that stadium, in that arena, but it was like an intimate moment with everybody that was there. That part was really cool.
Yeah, it really was. And like, another thing that you could tell is, like, Triple H understood what he was walking into the Hall of Fame, where we're about to honor the Undertaker and the Steiner brothers and yada, yada, yada. So he didn't want this moment to be about him, but he also realizes that, like, this is unavoidable. Like, the people are going to cheer for me. They're going to do all this. And, like, he didn't stop them, which was good. Nobody stopped him. Like, it was just this, it's almost like what we did with Undertaker for 7 minutes before his Hall of Fame speech, And when Triple H gets inducted in the Hall of Fame by himself, the same thing is going to happen, man. But just being in the building, Andy, for those two moments, you said that Triple H is one of your all-time favorites. He's always been one of my favorites as well. Like, that was one of the things that I will always remember about Mania weekend.
Yep. Yeah, me too. And the fact that it kicked off the show, nobody was expecting it. His music hit, and it took us like as soon as his music hit, we looked at each other like, oh,
Yep.
this is happening. Like
Yep.
because it was weird. There was no pyro at the beginning of night 2, and we were like, Cody must have blew the pyro budget night 1, so there's going to be no pyro at night 2, whatever. And all of a sudden, that music hit, and the place just went crazy. Like that was one of the top moments of the night for me. That was one of the top moments of the weekend. Whole WrestleMania weekend for me was seeing that moment with him.
Yeah, you mentioned that even though that he did come out at WrestleMania and it was awesome, we didn't get to see one of his signature WrestleMania entrances. Man, you talk about a guy who has been known for WrestleMania entrances over the years, and you wouldn't necessarily think, like from an outsider's perspective, if you just saw Triple H in the ring, he's not flashy. He's not any of that kind of, he's just a boots and tights kind of guy, taped up fist. You wouldn't think he would have all these classic, memorable WrestleMania entrances. But dude coming out like Mad Max, dude coming out on bikes, the dude coming out in this big cryo chamber thing. I think that was at 29.
Yeah, he came out as Terminator at 31.
Terminator at 31.
He burned himself with dry ice
Yep.
for one of his, I forget which, maybe it was Mania 20.
I think it was 29. I think it was against Brock.
That might have been against Brock because he just had like burn marks on his stomach from that the whole time. His entrance at WrestleMania 30 on the throne with Charlotte and Sasha and Alexa right there in front of him. He's one of those guys that he's not flashy,
right?
But when the moment is big, that's when his stuff really comes out.
Right.
It's kind of like Edge. Like Edge isn't necessarily the flat. I mean, his entrance obviously it was kind of flashy with the pyro and everything, but like he held everything kind of to the big moments. I think Triple H did the same thing, and not all of them were as cool as I think he thought they were going to be. Some of them were a little. The Mad Max one was a little iffy at times. I'm sure because you were there in person, so I'm sure that one was amazing in person.
It was cool.
Hearing Michael Cole on commentary though kind of took away from the from the coolness of that. But I mean, his one at 30 is one of my favorites of all time. Of him just ascending on the throne as the King of Kings, like all of that was really cool.
One of the underrated ones, I think it was at WrestleMania. I want to say it was 25, where he had the sledgehammer. He had the glass pane in front of him. He threw the sledgehammer through the glass pane. Yeah, that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
So, and then who could forget? I think it's 22 when he wrestled Cena. He comes out as like this Conan the Barbarian, King of Kings type guy. That one was really cool too. Very cool.
Yeah.
We're talking about all these memorable moments at WrestleMania, but the guy has made memories throughout his whole career. There's so many things, like you said, there's so many times that people want to punch him in the face and throw him through a wall. Then there's so many times that we're just laughing our heads off at the guy. But all in all, in 27 years, I think is where we're at. He's a 14-time world champion. That is tied for third most with Randy Orton behind John Cena and Ric Flair. I don't think anybody has 15. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think so.
But I think it's Cena, Flair at 16, and then Orton and Triple H at 14.
Yeah.
Man, what a career the guy has had. From a guy who started out in WCW. For those of you, by the way, who have not watched the King of Kings documentary, it's not King of Kings. It's Thy Kingdom Come on Peacock. If you haven't watched that documentary, it is 2 hours, but it is so worth it. You will gain a whole new appreciation for Triple H. But on that documentary, Andy, he talks about how he was given an opportunity to go to WCW in 1994. And Bischoff saw his tape, and he's already this big jacked up guy because he got into bodybuilding and all that kind of stuff. And Bischoff tells him, "I'm going to offer you a 2-year contract." Triple H says, "I don't want it." He says, "I want a 1-year contract." Bischoff goes, "Why?" Triple H goes, "Let me explain. You're offering to pay me $52,000 a year. That's $1,000 a week. I'm going to starve." He said, "So if at the end of the year, you're either going to know that I'm worth way more than $52,000, or I'm not going to be working here at all. He said, so it's only a year. So Bischoff said, okay. And Triple H proved himself in that year, making his way to the WWE right after that. But man, how crazy is that? Just knowing, I guess, the way he puts it is like, I was taking a stupid shot and I probably shouldn't have done it. But
Right.
at the same time, it's like to be that confident in your abilities, man, it speaks volumes not only to his ability, but to who he is as a person.
That's like his whole memo as a person, like his career
Yeah.
is, and that like for better or for worse, he has so much stock in himself that he's going to prove himself all the time. He wants to be the best. He wants to be the top guy all the time, which who doesn't want to be that? It's like I
Right.
understand that aspect of it. Obviously, there are times when he should have stepped aside, not necessarily stepped aside, but taken the backseat role, not been forefront. There's obviously a handful of matches that he shouldn't have won that he obviously did, but it's all because he had that confidence in himself that it started back in '94 of like, I'm going to prove myself, and if I don't, then I'm useless here anyway. So what's the
Yep.
point of doing more than a year? So, I feel like a lot of wrestlers who have been successful or who are successful have that mindset of like,
Yeah.
I'm going to prove myself, my worth, and if you don't find me worthy, I'll go somewhere else and do that. I mean, Taker was kind of the same way of
Yep.
he was told that he was never going to be anything, and then one of the greatest character of all time, one of the best
Exactly.
of all time. So it just goes to show that he didn't put stock necessarily in what other people thought. He put stock in himself and drove that out, and that's why he was as successful as he was.
Well, you look at Johnny Gargano's new T-shirt that he has out that I bought when we were at WrestleCon. The slogan on the shirt is "Bet on yourself."
Yeah,
Yeah, AJ Styles talks about all the time how he left TNA because they tried to cut his pay, and he said, "No, I had to bet on AJ Styles. I had to
yeah.
bet on myself in leaving TNA." And guess what? He's a first ballot WWE Hall of Famer when he retires now.
Well,
And
we've
so,
talked
I
about
mean,
him a couple times already. Cody Rhodes left
absolutely,
WWE to go bet on himself to kind of get out of Dusty Shadow, and look, he's the hottest thing in wrestling right now. So like
yep,
you need to bet on yourself sometimes. Drew McIntyre was the same way. I mean, he got fired, but he bet on himself out in the independent scene,
yep.
and is now probably one of the top guys, if not just below Roman, in the entire company.
He
Like
definitely is.
he's definitely one of the top 3 guys in all of WWE. So you just got to bet on yourself at times and not put stock in what other people are thinking or saying, but what you can accomplish, what you can do, and then go out and do it.
Don't take no for an answer. I mean,
Yeah.
like we're not developing a TED talk here. We're not trying to give
I'm doing my best
motivational
Undertaker. I'm doing my best Undertaker impression.
right. Well, we're not trying to like motivate all you listeners, but if it helps, then absolutely take our advice. But like that it applies outside of wrestling as well. Like
Yeah.
bet on yourself. If you have the abilities and you know you can succeed, then bet on yourself, take chances, and hopefully it'll pay off. It has for Johnny Gargano, has for Cody Rhodes, it has for AJ Styles, and it worked out for Triple H too. I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
the guy had a Hall of Fame career for sure. But before we keep going in his career and talking about some of our favorite moments and memories and stuff like that, when was the first time that you remember? Because I know you came along a little bit later than I did, obviously, as far as a wrestling fan is concerned. When do you remember seeing Triple H for the first time on TV? Or what's your first, like, if you can think back, your first memory of seeing Triple H on TV?
So I've said it before on the podcast of my first introduction to wrestling, or at least the one that I remember the most is turning on Monday Night Raw randomly, scrolling through the channel, and the main event of the night was Cena and Taker versus Jericho versus DX.
Oh,
Obviously,
yes.
Triple H is in DX at that time and things like that. So getting to see those guys, I think that's part of the reason why like I love Triple H and I love the Undertaker so much is those two guys were the two guys that I gravitated towards when I started watching wrestling. Obviously,
Yep.
Chris Jericho was fun to watch. Big Show with his size. I wasn't a big Cena fan from the get go, so that is what it is. Not like Shawn Michaels and everything, but Triple H and Undertaker, seeing those two guys together, like that was what kind of got me hooked. So that's like the first real memory I have. But I also remember, was it Mania 25? What year was Mania 25? Was it
09.
2009?
Yep.
So I think it was during that time. His feud with Randy
Yes.
is what
Yep.
I remember very, very heavily as well. I don't remember the time period because I don't remember if this match happened. I don't remember exactly when this match happened and the Jericho triple threat tag team, whatever.
I
Um,
think
but DX was still around,
that would have been in 08. I want to
probably.
say
Probably.
might have been 08.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Might well, you know what? It might have been also might have been 09 because they did a short run in 09. I don't remember.
Well,
I
they
don't
were
remember
together.
when Jericho was in.
DX was together though, going into Shawn's match with Taker at 26.
Correct. I'm gonna look it up while you're
That's
talking.
fine. So I don't remember exactly the order that these happened. I think maybe the Jericho. I know that triple threat tag team match happened first, but I remember, if not watching the feud, remembering and hearing about the feud and going back and watching it and things like that. That was one of the things that really stuck out to me, and just his attitude and the way he carried himself. That's like the first real memory I have of Triple H is him, one of the guys in the ring that got me into wrestling, and then kind of becoming and evolving into one of my favorite characters and wrestlers of all time. So that's kind of like the first thing that I really remember when I talk about Triple H.
Monday Night Raw, November 16th, 2009.
So that happened after Mania.
Yeah, that was after 25.
So I think I heard about it probably heading into Mania 26.
Yep.
And then going back and watching it. But that's one of the first things I remember is
Yep.
obviously that match, but then going back and watching that match at 25. He wrestled
Randy at 25.
Sheamus
Randy
at
at 25,
26.
Sheamus at 26. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because I hated Sheamus because I was a Triple H guy, so I hated Sheamus. Yeah, all like that whole time period though was like my first introduction to who Triple H is.
I'll take you in the Wayback Machine about 15 years. I remember Triple H in WCW. I do not remember him as Terror Rising, which was his first gimmick, but I do remember him in his short run with Lord Steven Regal as they were
Yes.
slowly forming the Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
And they hadn't quite formed the team yet when Triple H's contract ran out. And then they replaced Triple H with Bobby Eaton and then Squire David Taylor. And they officially became the Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
But I do remember Triple H. And I don't remember if when I saw him on WWF, when he debuted, if I made the connection that it was the guy from WCW. Don't necessarily remember if I did that, but I vividly remember seeing the vignettes leading up to his debut. And man, one of the first times, of course, if people haven't seen this, go back and watch it and you'll understand why it sticks out in my mind, was against, I want to say it was against Tom Brandy. I think he was Salvador Sincere at the time. Lovely name, I know. But it was one of the first times that Triple H hit the pedigree. Now, why this sticks out in my mind is Triple H dropped the dude on his head. Like he went to pick him up for the pedigree, and the dude almost went vertical.
Yeah.
And Triple H dropped him. So for those of you who haven't seen it, just look it up and you'll know what I'm talking about. But I remember vividly watching that and those things. So yes, I can safely say that I've been a Triple H fan from the beginning, from his aristocratic behavior and the Greenwich snob and all this other crazy stuff. Triple H has been through the ringer.
Yes.
But man, like going through his career, that's your earliest memory of Triple H. But let's talk about your favorite memory of Triple H. When you think Triple H, when you think his career, not necessarily a match, but what sticks out in your mind that makes you smile about Triple H? What kind of memory?
Obviously I didn't watch during this time, but I've seen all the footage that I've needed to see, and I've technically kind of seen the matches to get them together. But his run with Evolution, I mean, it has to be up there as one of the greatest runs because of obviously Ric Flair was Ric Flair and was the established veteran that has been there for a while. Triple H was the top guy that has obviously been there for a while, but he wasn't necessarily he wasn't in the position that he was in during that time until that point in time. So like that
Right,
was
right.
like he was the main guy of the company. And then you bring up two guys like Batista and Randy Orton, who, I mean, you mentioned the top 4 most title reigns of all time: Ric Flair and John Cena at 16, Randy Orton and Triple H at 14.
Yep.
They're together up top, and I don't think Randy's done. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if Randy surpassed Ric Flair. I wouldn't be shocked if he surpassed Cena, if I'm going to be real honest with you. But I mean, like bringing up two guys like Batista and Randy Orton, two guys that are first ballot Hall of Famers,
Yep.
two guys that are maybe not Batista as much, but two of the greatest maybe of all time. Randy Orton, I think, is in the conversation of one of the greatest of all times, if not the greatest of all time.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's just that whole run was really interesting. The first run, like the first few months of the Authority, I really enjoyed.
Yep.
Like him turning on Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam was a moment that will never be forgotten, because without that moment, you don't get WrestleMania 30. You don't get a whole lot of other stuff that happened. And while the promos got very tiresome very quickly, they did their job very well, and they were very good at it. And another case of Seth Rollins isn't at the level he's at, or at the maybe not. He might be, but he doesn't get there as quickly as he does without joining the Authority.
Right.
Roman Reigns doesn't get there without feuding with the Authority. And so that whole thing was really interesting. And then the Sting stuff, like Triple H and Sting together, was, even as a guy that didn't watch WCW, I understood how awesome it was to see Sting versus Triple H. Like if we couldn't get Sting versus The Undertaker, I think Sting versus Triple H was the next best thing that we could have got.
Sure it was. Absolutely it was. Yeah, all those are fantastic things, man. Like just the way, I think the thread that we can see through that is a lot of guys wouldn't be where they are without Triple H.
Yep.
So many guys.
Yep.
So many guys. I mean, the stars of today, Rollins and Reigns, the stars of, I don't want to say that they're not stars today, but their prime was a couple of years back in Randy Orton and Batista. And then, of course, you had the magical run with Daniel Bryan, like you said. Sting's only major run in WWE happened against Triple H. Because Triple H was with Seth Rollins when Sting had the Rollins match too. So like all of those things, man, Triple H is just so involved in those things, and his just the way that he is threaded throughout this business, especially over the last several years. He's really been used to make bigger stars. He really has.
I think it's kind of safe to not necessarily. I don't know, because I got to kind of think about this comparison, but I think for most of the guys that he, for a lack of a better term, buried, because he was known for for getting the gold shovel and doing
that Evolution run that you talk so good about, a lot of people call that thing the Reign of Terror, and that's exactly what it was, those couple of years.
But I think for a lot of the people that he buried, he brought up just as many guys that are top company guys. Batista, Randy Orton. I mean, without NXT, we don't have Kevin Owens. We don't have Sami Zayn. We don't have Seth Rollins. We don't have Roman Reigns. There's a lot of guys that we wouldn't have if it wasn't for that as well. So I think he has done as much. He's done more good than bad. But the things that he did that were bad are some of them are almost unforgivable at times.
I mean, that's certainly true. I mean, there are a lot of opinions out there about Triple H, and a lot of negative things. But like you said, for every negative, there's so much more positive. And one that immediately comes to my mind is The Rock. Now, everybody really associates The Rock with Stone Cold Steve Austin just because they have the trilogy of Mania matches and yada, yada, yada. But especially if you go back and watch that Triple H documentary, really goes in depth of the wars and the incredible matches that Rock and Triple H had coming up in their career. I mean, SummerSlam 98 ladder match is an insane match. They had an Iron Man match just not too long after that. The way that those guys were able to elevate each other, not just, one or the other, but both. The way they were able to elevate each other and become main event players. I mean, that's one of my favorite members of Triple H is during that feud with The Rock when they do the impersonation of the Nation of Domination on Monday Night Raw, and Triple H dresses up like The Rock. He calls himself the Croc.
Yeah.
Says he just came from the bathroom. Should have
Yeah.
smelled what the crock was cooking, So like, it's just absolutely incredible. And my favorite memory of Triple H, all those things that you said was great. My honest favorite memory of Triple H comes from, I want to say this was 2000. Yeah, it's 2006. When he and Shawn Michaels dress up like Vince and Shane McMahon,
Oh my
and they
gosh.
get in the
It's so
ring and they
great.
dance and they do and is hands down my favorite memory of Triple H, because he walks like Vince and he does
Yeah.
the stand back dance. And
Yeah.
he tells Shawn to shut up.
Shut up. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Shawn, it's amazing.
Shawn
I love
dancing
it.
like Shane was absolutely amazing. I kind of going
So
off the
funny.
same thing of like, obviously it happened the other way, but when Rated RKO dressed up as DX,
Yes.
and they did that whole shtick, like that whole thing was funny. One of the other things that sticks out that's funny is the whole Kofi King. I think they were heading into Survivor Series 2010,
Yes.
or was it 2000? I think it was 2010.
I
I want to say
believe
10.
so.
Where Kofi Kingston, he either was supposed to drop his Jamaican accent or he forgot his Jamaican accent. There's been different ones, and the first person anybody says is Triple H grabs the mic and says, "Aren't you supposed to be Jamaican?" And the look on Kofi's face and everything is perfect.
Right.
The Survivor Series 2000, was it 2008, where it was Triple H and Shawn Michaels and the Hardy Boys and CM Punk. Was it 2008 or 2007?
It was either 8 or 9. Hardy was gone by then, so it had to be 8, because 2008 is when Jeff won the world title at Armageddon from Triple H and Edge in that match. So I would say it was 8.
Well, it may even been like 6. It may have been 2006.
May have been.
Because Punk was like super young.
For those of you who are listening to this podcast and don't think we do our research, sorry about that. I mean, we're just, sometimes we fly off the cuff. Sorry.
But that whole interaction of, I believe it was Mike Knox in the ring and the bell ring, and Shawn Michaels just super kicked them 1, 2, 3. And then the two of them go in the corner of like, who was that? Triple H like, I have no idea. Like, their comedic, like their timing of comedy stuff, not everything was perfect. Obviously, there were moments that didn't work, but the things that worked are so funny. Especially with the DX Express, and like with Peyton Vince McMahon's bus and his plane, and messing with Vince's mic on TV, like all of that stuff.
And then there was time where they took Jonathan Coachman and threw him through a wall, and then ripped his pants down and spray painted his butt.
Yeah.
There was the time where, I don't know what he was doing with Shawn. They were walking around backstage. Shawn was super kicking everybody, and he super kicks Ty Dillinger.
Yeah. I just kicked Stan. Yeah. There's also the time that they shoved Vince's face into Big Show's butt.
Oh, yes. Yep.
There's that time. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I also think about their original DX run with Sergeant Slaughter, and they had this face shield that had the windshield wipers on it.
Yep.
That stuff like that is just so funny and so stupid, but it works so well.
Well, what that makes me think of, man, is like, I don't know about you, but Triple H seems like a guy that I would just want to hang out with. He seems like a genuinely funny guy.
I think he's the kind of guy that if you're friends with him, you're gonna have a good time. If you're enemies with him, you're gonna hate his guts. I think I think that's the common theme of things. But the things that he does is just so funny at times.
Yep.
And like I remember, I think it was either before his Authority time or during the Authority. The network was still around, or the network was around. He got that promo on Raw saying that me and my friend Mark are going to stop watching, and like talking about fans being marks and everything. Like, stuff like that was just so funny that he did, and it's just things like that I really enjoyed with him.
Yeah, if you ask Justin Roberts, he would be on the other side of that spectrum. He is not a fan of Triple H if you read his book.
Yeah. Neither is CM Punk.
So. Neither is CM Punk. So there you go. Oh man, if you're just now joining us, I hope you're having as much fun as we are, talking all about the career of Triple H, recently announcing that he is retiring from in-ring competition. This is the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast, a show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your host, Chris Belcher. You can follow me at Chris Belcher24 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. My co-host, partner in crime, Mr. Andy York. You can follow him at Andy_PBWP. Make sure you show us some love on social media. I know that we would both very much appreciate that. Man, we've been talking about Triple H and just all the fantastic things that he's done throughout his career and all the fantastic things he's done on the screen and his accomplishments and memories and yada, yada, yada. But let's peel back the curtain. Listen to me, I can't talk. Let's peel back the curtain and talk for a minute about behind the scenes. And now, Andy and I, neither one have any sort of insight or information on any of this. And Andy doesn't know that I'm about to ask him this, but I'm going to ask him anyway.
Okay.
Behind the scenes, Triple H got a lot of flack for a little while and probably still gets a lot of flack from a lot of people for his relationship with the boss's daughter. Now, depending on what timeline you believe and what sources you believe as to how that relationship got started, I don't know. China could have been involved. She could not have been involved. Could be the reason she got fired. I don't know. I'm just telling you what the dirt sheets say, okay?
Right.
But Triple H and Stephanie get involved. Word around the street is, Stephanie wasn't allowed to date the boys. Vince gives his blessing because it's Triple H. Then he takes his blessing away. Then he comes back and he says, you know what? Screw it. Y'all be together. And then they get married and they have 3 kids. Man, talk about the pressure. I mean, not only are you dating the boss's daughter, but you're dating Vince McMahon's daughter. And you have to think that there are so many guys back there who are best friends with Vince or have been by Vince's side for a long time who want to protect Stephanie, but they like Triple H at the same time. What happens if this relationship goes south? I mean, that's career suicide.
Yeah.
What kind of pressure, man, this guy had been under? My goodness.
Yeah, it definitely was. He definitely had to feel pressure, and I think they don't go into a lot of detail. But in the Evil documentary series that they just released on Peacock with the Stephanie McMahon episode, she talks about her relationship with Triple H, and obviously the chemistry definitely started after she turned on Vince and joined Triple H, and all that stuff happened. And so that's when that kind of happened. And so I guess there had to have been a lot of pressure on Triple H to toe the company line, but also like have the relationship that he wants to have with Stephanie.
Sure.
And obviously to have Vince McMahon as a possible father-in-law to be now the father-in-law would be a very difficult circumstances because you don't know how Vince is going to act all the time and react to things all the time. But I think if it was anybody else other than maybe like the Undertaker, but if it was like I think it only could have been Triple H for this to work. I really do. And so I think they got used to it over time. Obviously, he probably did use that relationship to move his way up the company ladder because why wouldn't you? If I want to be honest, if they're going to give you the opportunities, why not take the opportunities? But there must have been a lot of pressure on Triple H to toe the company line, but also maintain the relationship and not step out of the way or step out of bounds or anything like that.
Right. I mean, word is from Vince, from Stephanie, from Triple H, and from Bruce Pritchard is that Triple H was attending meetings, like company production meetings and creative meetings before he and Stephanie were together.
Yeah.
Now, whether they've kind of, again, moved that timeline around to fit the narrative a little bit, I don't know. But, you have to think. We've talked about this. We talked about this on our tribute to Scott Hall episode about how creative and how great of a mind that he is. And part of that came with riding up and down the roads with Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Sean Waltman, and Triple H. Well, guess what? The same thing goes for Triple H. Riding up and down the roads with those guys. I mean, the dude was already creative and the dude already knew how to handle himself. It just also, like you said, for Stephanie, it had to be Triple H. Well, to me, like if you picked anybody from that time frame to transition to an office role, it has to be Triple H.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because he's the guy that has his head on straight. He's not into anything. He's clean cut, all these things. So for him to migrate over into the office made sense with or without Stephanie McMahon.
Yeah.
Like you said, though, it may have just accelerated a little bit at Thanksgiving dinner or at Christmas or, whatever,
But I will also say, like, I think you're right. Triple H probably was the only one. I think you also could have put William Regal in there as well, because I think
for sure, yeah.
I think William Regal could be in the company and like make the company better, because
sure
he has one of the best wrestling minds. I'm gonna die on that hill always of saying William Regal might have the best wrestling mind of all time, if I'm gonna be real honest. And so that he may have been the only one, but Triple H, I think Triple H from the beginning knew he wanted to be in this business.
Yes.
In some capacity.
Yep.
Whether it was a wrestler, whether it was in the office doing something, booking, whatever it is. And when he got the time to shine, and I'm not talking about like on the main roster or anything, like when he got the time to take over NXT and turned NXT into the best wrestling promotion in the world at that time.
Yeah.
He showed, like, I can run a company.
Yep.
Like, if I think is the term now, if Vince McMahon ever retires or something else happens to Vince, I think he could be the guy that could step into that role.
Yep.
And probably take it the steps it needs to take to be more consistent and to advance more. And so I think that's kind of the place that we're in right now with Triple H, as long as he can stay healthy as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I think he's one of those guys that he was going to be in the wrestling business in some capacity, one way or another.
And I think it boils down to, pun or no pun intended, no matter how you want to take this, he's a student of the game. I mean,
he knows how to play it. Yeah.
That's it. Like, he knows the game. I'm not saying he invented the game, but you guys get what I mean.
He improved it. I think he by far has improved it. And I don't think he improved it. I mean, he probably did some, but I think he really improved the wrestling game. 2013, 2014?
Mm-hmm.
When NXT really
started. Yep.
2014 is when he really changed the end. Like, he changed wrestling across the board, not just WWE. He changed independent wrestling. 2017, 2018, I think, is when NXT UK kind of came around.
17.
He changed the British independent scene forever by getting involved with Evolve and all this other stuff. It's like he changed the wrestling game, for better or for worse. That's kind of your opinion. You can kind of, if you like the new style of wrestling, then great. If you don't, then that's fine. But he definitely has advanced the game of wrestling in multiple ways.
Yep. It definitely has. As we get ready to wrap up here, a couple more points that I certainly want to hit as we're talking about the career of Triple H. We can't end an episode paying tribute to somebody without talking about more of our favorite things. Now, this is not your favorite match of Triple H, and we'll ask you that in a minute. But was there somebody else that might not be involved in your favorite match of Triple H that was your favorite person to see him wrestle? Like, if you have to turn on a Triple H match, it might not be your favorite Triple H match.
Right.
But is there somebody that you just enjoy seeing him wrestle more than others?
It has to be Shawn. Like, it has to be Shawn Michaels. I mean, Shawn is technically involved in my favorite Triple H match, which we'll talk about in a minute, but he's not. He is, but he isn't involved.
Right.
But the match itself of, like, the SummerSlam match, 2002, I believe it was.
Yes, it
SummerSlam Triple H Shawn Michaels is one of my favorite matches of all time, and both guys tore the house down, and they just had chemistry. I kind of just was thinking about it as we were talking about this, how much chemistry. Basically, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa are the modern day Triple H and Shawn Michaels feud.
Absolutely, 1000%.
And, I think I prefer Shawn and Triple H because their SummerSlam match was just stupid, and all the other matches that they did were just incredible. But that is definitely like the modern take of that feud. I think that's Triple H's best feud. I think that's his best It's his best tag team partner. It's his best rival. Is Shawn Michaels.
That's my thing. Is like I love so much watching because Shawn's my answer too. Like I
Right.
love so much watching them against each other, but I love just as much when they were together. Like when
Yeah.
they were a team. Like think about all the great feuds in wrestling history. You got your Austin Rock, you got your Hogan, whoever, fill in the blank, Hogan Savage, yada yada. We did not ever get a Shawn versus Triple H WrestleMania match. Like that's a travesty.
That blows my mind.
That is a
blows my mind that it didn't
travesty,
happen. Yeah.
right?
Like I think
I get it because you can use both of those guys to make other guys better. Like I get that, but come on.
Right. Honestly, I think though if you wanted to, and I don't want to because I think the two matches are amazing.
Yep.
If it wasn't Undertaker that was going to retire Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, I think it had to be Triple H.
Yep.
I think that could have been the moment that they did it. I think the Undertaker was the perfect story to tell, and they told it at the perfect time. But I think you could have done that with Triple H. That blows my mind that they never wrestled against each other at WrestleMania.
Never.
But the matches that they had together were just special.
And I'm going to recommend one that I don't know if you've seen before. I don't know if a lot of our listeners have seen before. It's a sleeper. It's not one that everybody knows about. I'm going to encourage you. If you take one thing away from this Triple H podcast, it's go back and watch this match right here. It is the last Monday Night Raw of 2003. I want to say it's December 27th or 28th. The exact date escapes me. It's the last Raw of 2003. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship in San Antonio, Texas. The backstory of this match is that something happened with one of them. Like they were trying to plan out the match, but one person got tugged in one way backstage, and then they tried to plan the match, and then they got tugged. They didn't plan the match. 5 minutes before they were supposed to go out, they finally connected and said, "We're just going to call it in the ring." And they went like 45 minutes. And it's one of the best Raw matches that I've ever watched in my life.
Yeah.
And that's not biased. That's just straight facts. Go find that match on Peacock. Yeah. Watch it. It's absolutely incredible. So good.
I'll throw another. I thought since we both had Shawn, I'll kind of throw another honorable mention out there.
Yes.
Triple H and Mick Foley, I think, was a lot of fun to watch as well. That Rumble match that they had was brutal. I mean, absolutely brutal. But they had a lot of other matches as well that were really well, and I really enjoyed that. So I think he's one of those. I think Mick Foley works well with anybody, to be real honest with you. But I think with Triple H, it was like on another level that was so great.
He worked together good with Rock for entertainment.
Yes.
The story with the Undertaker just was told so well.
Yeah.
Steve Austin with the comedy and stuff like that with Dude Love and all that kind of stuff. But you talk about brutality and bringing out the best in each other. Triple H and Mick Foley. I mean, absolutely, hands down. Well, that transitions us perfect into our favorite match of Triple H, and I know what yours is, so I'm gonna hold off for a minute. Mine, I wrote down the Foley match from Rumble. I also wrote down, I think my favorite Triple H match of all time is the SummerSlam match with Shawn, even though it's not a wrestling match. It's a street fight, but it's the best street fight I've ever watched.
It's so fun.
The other one that I wrote down, man, is the WrestleMania 20 main event with Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit. I'm telling y'all, if you can stomach a Chris Benoit match, it's one of the best WrestleMania main events of all time, and it'll never get talked about again. So, like, the match is just unbelievable. It's the way a triple threat match is supposed to be laid out. Those are my favorites. Obviously, we could go on and talk about his matches with Randy Orton. We could talk about Batista. We could talk about Stone Cold, The Rock, yada, whatever. List goes on and on. But I'll let you have the floor for your favorite Triple H match.
So the Mick Foley match is definitely up there as like one of my favorite matches of Triple H's run. The SummerSlam match is definitely up there. I was trying to think of some other ones. I don't think it's one of the best matches of all time, but I really enjoyed his match with Seth at WrestleMania 33.
Yes,
that match was a lot of fun. Yep. That whole feud was weird, but the moment Seth interrupted Takeover was the moment I was hooked. Of like, this is gonna like nobody's ever done that before, and that's brilliant to do that.
Yep.
But my favorite Triple H match, and my favorite WrestleMania match, my favorite match of all time, is Triple H versus The Undertaker, WrestleMania 28, Hell in a Cell. Shawn Michaels, the guest referee. The match isn't perfect. The match is probably a little long, but the spot of the super kick pedigree kick out is the it's the best WrestleMania moment of all time, in my opinion. Like the thing about the streak was it was boring unless there was somebody in the ring that you thought this could
Might
be
do
it.
Yep.
And from Batista to Punk, Batista to Brock, really, that was the run of like each and every year, you know, Batista could do it. Edge could do it. Shawn could do it. Triple H could do it. Punk could do it. Brock did it. And so, like, but just the thought of the super kick pedigree and then kick out at 2.99 was great. I love the story of Triple H begging Shawn to stop the match
Yep.
with Taker. Triple H taking the sledgehammer shots. The feud itself building up to it was great. I remember the one promo segment, which was the weird time, that random time that Undertaker was coming out to "Hold My Body Down." Ain't no grave
Oh
can hold
yeah,
my body down.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Johnny Cash song. But the promo was like him, and it was Taker, it was Triple H, and it was Shawn in the ring, and like you could tell that like there was tension between all three of them, because at one point Shawn was like, "What makes you think that you can beat the Undertaker when I couldn't?" And he turned and looked at Triple H, and like all those moments were really cool.
Yep.
The match itself was just, I think it was perfect storytelling, and it's my favorite Triple H match.
I'll go back to the promo from the year before when they
Yes.
announced their 27 match.
Oh my gosh.
But they didn't announce it. They didn't use a single word
They just stood there.
during that promo.
They just
And it
stood there.
was magical. Like
Because
they took the crowd on a ride with no words.
because I think Triple H had been gone for, he'd been out for a couple months, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Taker
yeah.
had been out obviously since the Mania before, I'm pretty sure.
Was it this when they were when they did the vignettes where they were counting down like the
Yeah.
date Taker was coming back or
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah.
then Triple H shows up too?
And
Yeah.
then like nobody knew Triple H was going to be there, but everybody kind of figured Taker was going to be there.
Right.
And Taker's in the ring, and all of a sudden Triple H's music hits, and they don't say a word, and Triple H just points at the sign, and Taker just looks at him, and that, like, from that moment on, that's all we needed. Like, that's all we needed, and it was just great.
It's so good. It's so good. A lot of great stuff, man. We can sit here and talk about Triple H memories and matches and moments all night long, but let's put a bow on this episode talking about the Game, who recently announced he is officially retiring from in-ring competition. We wanted to take this episode at the end of WrestleMania season to make sure that we pay tribute to one of the greatest of all time. Andy, I don't know, when we talk about the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling, I don't know if Triple H quite gets there.
Mm-hmm.
But Andy, if there was a second Mount Rushmore, it's so hard not to put Triple H on that. Wouldn't you agree?
I completely agree, and I think it depends on the category of the Mount Rushmore.
Sure. Yeah,
because I think if you did like Wrestling Minds, I think he's up there. I
sure
think
he is.
he's absolutely up there. I think he's up there for like his promos were ahead of everybody else, and his character work was super, like, was above everybody else at times. And so he definitely is in the conversation of greatest of all time. Personally, I think he is one of the greatest of all times. He's one of my favorites of all time, so I'm biased when it comes to it, but it's hard not to put him in that conversation. There's so many guys that, honestly, it depends on the last match I've seen that who is on my list. And he's one of those guys that, like, he could be on my list, he couldn't be, like, he may not be on my list. I have no idea. But he's top 10 of all time, possibly top 5.
Absolutely. Oh, he definitely is. All right, let's put a bow on this episode, man. Anything else you want to add about Triple H? Anything that we missed? Anything, just thoughts about Triple H and just his career and, you know, everything he's meant to the business?
Not I mean, we've covered a lot of it, but just thank you, Triple H, for everything, for your dedication, your hard work, your matches, your investment into the future of the wrestling business. You know, the wrestling world would not be what it is right now without Triple H. And
Yep.
it's hard to believe that. It's hard to believe that his career is done. But we're thankful for the moments that we got.
Yep.
And he did it the way he wanted to do it, by putting his boots in the ring and walking out and getting his last probably WrestleMania moment with the big pop and the big crowd and everything else. So just thank you, Triple H, for everything, really.
I got to see the man wrestle in person 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Got to see him wrestle and don't regret a single one of them.
Yep.
What I also don't regret is being a Triple H fan from the beginning, because growing up as a wrestling fan,
oh man,
there were a lot of my friends and a lot of my family members who dogged me for being such a big Triple H fan. I would like to publicly say thank you, Triple H, for helping me prove them right, because I was right the whole time. They were not. So Triple H, the man, just the incredible mind that he is and the incredible resource that he has been for so many people, not just in NXT. I mean, Randy Orton wouldn't be where he is without Triple H, Batista, Seth Rollins. We've listed all these things, but the rightful place that Triple H is going to take in wrestling history is just, I mean, it's absolutely deserved. I don't know anybody. I don't want to discount anybody for not working hard or anything, but the guy recovering from injuries as quick as he does, and
wrestling with injuries.
I mean,
what was the match where he tore both quads in like the first 10 minutes and finished? It was like a 30-minute match or whatever. Like,
just ridiculous. So again, echo exactly what Andy just said. Thank you, Triple H, for everything that you have given to the wrestling business. We may just be two lowly podcasters who Triple H may never hear this, but for people out there who might not appreciate him as much as you should, maybe this will sway your thoughts and sway your mindset about Triple H and what he truly meant to the wrestling business. I hate kind of ending on a somber note, because he's not dead. He's not, thankfully he did have a big health scare recently. So he is still alive. He's still with us. But it is kind of sad that he's hanging it up. We're not going to see Triple H anymore, but we got 27 years of stuff we can go back and watch and reminisce about how fun Triple H was. I think I'm going to go watch him and Shawn Michaels impersonate Vince and Shane McMahon and have me a good laugh before I head off to bed tonight. But again, for those of you who might be checking us out for the first time, thank you so much for sticking with us. We appreciate it very much. Hit that follow button on all of our social media at PBW Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell on the BodySlam.net YouTube channel. That is the exclusive home to our video versions of our podcast. All of the episodes are available in the archives on BodySlam.net's YouTube channel. Make sure you go check them out, including, guys, I cannot stress this enough, last week's episode where we dumped all of our pictures from our time in Dallas going along with the podcast. Go check that out. That is a one-of-a-kind episode that we don't do very often. Go back and check that out. That way you can kind of relive Dallas with us. It was so much fun. We want you to make sure to check it out. Again, this coming week, we will talk all current product stuff, AEW, WWE, and whatever news hits in between. And then next Monday, TSF makes their return to the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. So make sure that you're tuned in for that. Hit that subscribe button and all of those things. All right. That was going to do it for this edition of the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. For Mr. Andy York, my name is Chris Belcher. Thank you for hanging out with us. We will catch you guys down the road.